Hi, I'm going to show you some basic getting started tips for MapInfo Pro 16.0, a geographic information system that lets you display and analyze your data geographically. So let's jump in and I'll show you some beginner's tasks that you might perform when first learning your way around MapInfo Pro. Here's what MapInfo looks like when you first launch it, mostly a blank work area or workspace, with commands across the top organized into various tabs. Now let's start by opening a map, because if you launched MapInfo, there's a good chance you would like to see a map. The quickest way of opening a map is to open a Bing base layer. So to do that, I will go to the Home tab, and then under the Open icon, I will expand the menu. And one section of this menu contains base maps. There are various options for satellite imagery versus roads, etc. These are all Bing base maps. I'll choose Bing roads, and just by clicking this icon, I have now opened a Bing map, a simple one-layer Bing map. It's the Bing roads layer, but the default view is showing me the entire world. And chances are you would like to see more detail than that, so you'll want to zoom in. There are various ways of zooming in on the map. You can very simply roll the mouse wheel, which I will do now. To zoom in, I'll roll the mouse wheel again. So that's always easy to do, but sometimes not the most precise way of zooming to exactly the spot that you want on the map. So if you want more precise control over where you're zooming in, you can go up to the ribbon again, and notice that now I have a map tab in front, now that I've got a map window. And on the Map tab, there are various tools available, so I will click on the Zoom In tool. The Zoom In tool does not automatically adjust the map, it simply selects a different tool that will now allow me to click where I want. So I've selected the Zoom In tool, and now since I want to zoom in on North America, I will mouse down and drag to draw a rectangle around North America, and when I release the mouse button, it zooms in on the area that I selected. And I can do that repeatedly, and now I'll draw a rectangle with the zoom in tool around northeastern United States, and when I release it zooms in again, and so forth. Or you can simply click and release without drawing a box, and that zooms in 2 times. And you can see as I'm zooming in, I'm seeing more detail. At this zoom level, you can start to see major highways, and if I zoom in closer and closer, you'll see more and more street detail. If you get to a point where you feel you've zoomed in too far and you want to zoom back out, again, you can simply roll the mouse wheel the other way. Or you can select the Zoom Out tool from the ribbon. And when you click with Zoom Out, we will zoom out and recenter the map at the spot where you clicked. So if I zoom out by clicking on Pennsylvania, we zoomed out, and now Pennsylvania is at the center of the map. Sometimes you don't need to zoom in or out, you just want to recenter the map, and for that I could click on the Pan tool, and then I can just mouse down and drag to reposition and recenter the map. There are also more convenient, in some people's opinions, tools for doing the same tasks that are available from the right-click menu. So I will now right-click, and in addition to this context menu, there's also a mini toolbar which contains many of the most frequently used tools. So after I right-clicked, I can easily get to the Zoom In tool, zoom in on Michigan. I can right-click again, get to the Zoom Out tool, and so forth. For now, let's put this aside now that we've seen some basic map navigation, because chances are you ran MapInfo not to see a standard map, but to see your data on the map. So let's close out of here, and to do that I will go to the Home tab. I want to go back to when I had a clean slate when I first started, so I will go under the Close icon and choose Close All. Now it's prompting me whether I want to save a workspace, and in this case, right now I do not. There's nothing that I've done so far that I feel the need to save, so I will say no, I do not want to save a workspace. And now, having done Close All, I'm back up to my initial state. And so now let's work on opening my data and bringing it into the map. And let's say you've got some Excel data, because that's a very common source of data. I have a demo worksheet in Excel which contains some basic city information across the United States. And let's see what I have to do to bring that into MapInfo Pro and open it on a map. On the Home tab, I'm going to click Open Table. Tables are a very important type of file in MapInfo. You will be using tables a lot. So I want to open my Excel spreadsheet and turn it into a MapInfo table, so I will click Open Table. I've already navigated to the directory that contains my Excel worksheet, but you'll see the dialog is empty. That's just because if you look at the bottom of the dialog, this dialog is letting you choose what type of file it displays, and right now it's defaulting to MapInfo table files, which have a .tab extension. And this directory doesn't have any .tab files yet because I'm just getting started. So I'm looking for my Excel worksheet, which has a .xls extension. So to make the dialog show that file, I go under Files of Type and change it from MapInfo to Microsoft Excel. And now my spreadsheet shows up. So I can select my spreadsheet. And at this point, I could click Open, but there's a very useful option at the bottom of the dialog that I want you to pay attention to. This checkbox says, Create Copy in MapInfo format for read-write. And I think that most of the time that is a good option to check. If you don't check this checkbox, then what will happen is MapInfo will display your Excel data, but MapInfo will not be able to edit the Excel data in place. If you feel that you might ever need to edit this data again in MapInfo, then what you want to do is check Create Copy in MapInfo format. And because I've checked that, now when I open this file, MapInfo will read in the contents of the Excel worksheet and save it as a MapInfo file format. So then MapInfo will have no restrictions, and MapInfo Pro will be able to edit that file in any way that you like. So I do check this option, and I click, having selected my worksheet, I click Open. And now there's a dialog that summarizes what MapInfo thinks I want to read out of this worksheet. Worksheets can be complicated. They can have lots of tabs, different cell ranges, maybe named cell ranges, and so forth. For this simple demo, I created a simple worksheet, and I just want to read the entire contents of that tab. So I don't need to worry about a cell range. I can just let MapInfo read the entire worksheet. But this checkbox is very useful. If you know that in your worksheet, the top row contains column names or column headings that describe what's in that column, then you should check this checkbox, and then MapInfo will be able to preserve and reuse those column descriptions when you see the data in MapInfo. And in my case, my spreadsheet does have those column headings at the top, so I'm checking this checkbox. Now I click OK. There's one more confirmation dialog that confirms what MapInfo has found in this spreadsheet and what MapInfo considers the columns to be. MapInfo found 5 columns, and I don't need to change anything in this dialog because this all looks correct to me. If I wanted to, I could change the column names by typing in different names here, but these names are all fine by me. They're descriptive names that came out of the worksheet, so I'm not going to change anything. I'll just click OK. And MapInfo read in the contents of my Excel worksheet and saved it as a MapInfo table. So here we have a data browser, or what we just call the browser window, showing me the contents of this file. So that's good progress so far. I've got my data in MapInfo, but I'm not yet able to view it on a map. And chances are that's what you want out of this exercise. You want to display your data on a map. In this case, I want to display a marker on the map for each row of data, sort of a pin map. Now there are different ways of doing that. In this case, my data has latitude, longitude coordinates, longitude in the X column and latitude in the Y column. And if you have that kind of precise coordinate information in your data, then the best way to put that data on a map is through an operation we call create points. So that's what I will do in this case. Now, creating points is what we consider a spatial operation. You'll notice we're already on the spatial tab, and on the spatial tab is a command called create points, so I'll select that now. Now it's always important to carefully review all the settings in the create points dialog because it made educated guesses about what's in your data, but you really should confirm those guesses. At the top of the dialog, it's asking which table do you want to create points for. In this exercise, I've only got one table open, so that's sort of a no-brainer. But if you had a lot of tables open, which you frequently will in MapInfo Pro, then you would need to make sure that this combo box was showing you the table that you want to operate on. The next option says using symbol. This is a style choice of what do you want these markers to look like on the map. They could look like diamonds or stars or what have you. There are a lot of symbols available installed with MapInfo. They're grouped by different fonts. There's MapInfo cartographic font, oil and gas, real estate, transportation, and so forth. I will just go with a basic hollow square symbol, 14-point black. So you can choose different colors and sizes and so forth. The projection is a concept of geographic information systems, which is a bit more advanced, a bit too advanced for an introductory lesson, but for now all I have to say is that because my data does have longitude, latitude, I don't need to change this setting at all, so I'm just going to accept the default. I'm providing longitude, latitude, and that's what this dialog thinks. Now these two choices here are where MapInfo is asking, okay, which of your columns contains the x-coordinate and which of your columns contains the y-coordinate. Now in this case, MapInfo guessed correctly based on the names of the columns. But if you didn't happen to have descriptive names on your columns, then you would have to manually select which of my columns contains x-coordinates and then manually select which of my columns contains y-coordinates. In my case, because the columns are named that way, the dialog made an educated guess and it guessed correctly as to which columns to choose. There are options here to multiply the coordinates. I don't need to do that. If your coordinates were in millionths of degrees or something odd like that, then you might need to multiply them to turn them into regular degrees. But in my case, I don't need to multiply the coordinates at all, and I expect that most of the time you won't either. So let's just leave these values. And display non-numeric fields, I don't need to worry about that. And overwrite existing points, I don't need to worry about because I don't have any points yet. The whole point of this exercise is to create points, so I don't need to worry about overwriting any existing points. So I believe the dialog is all set. So now I will just click OK. And very quickly, MapInfo Pro created a point for each row in this table. Now we're not seeing the points yet because right now we don't have a map window open. So let's open a map window to see what my points look like. I will go to the Map tab, and let's start on the left. Leftmost option is Map for a new map window. That sounds like what I want to do, so I will click the Map command. And that looks like cities across North America. So that looks like the points were created successfully. At least it looks like there are points spread across North America. Let's see, what other information can we get about these points? If I hover over a point, using the Select tool, you can see tooltips showing you the name of that point. There's Anchorage, which looks like around where I would expect Alaska to be. There's Corpus Christi, right around where I expect Texas to be. So it looks like the create points operation was successful, but you really want to confirm that these points were correctly placed at the accurate coordinates on the Earth. So let's confirm that these points are indeed at the right location by bringing back our Bing base map. So again, I'll go back to the Home tab, go back to the Open menu, display the Bing Roads layer by clicking this icon. And now we can see multiple layers in the map. There's the Bing base layer with my points displayed on top of it, and it does indeed look like the points are at the correct locations. So this point, this rectangle here, is where anchorage is supposed to be. So let's zoom way in on that. Here again is my point, which I can click to select. And this anchorage label is actually coming from the Bing base map, so that confirms that this point was in fact placed at the correct location. So it looks like the create points operation was successful, and it did put the points where they're supposed to be. So far so good. I've made some progress. I've brought my data in, I've created points for my data, and I can see those points on a map. And let's say that this is all I want to do for today. I want to just save my work in some manner and shut down the computer and come back tomorrow to resume where I left off. Then the thing you should do at this point is save a workspace. Now, if you've noticed the text at the very top, it says untitled.wor. This workspace is untitled currently because I have simply not given it a name, because I have not yet saved what we call a workspace. So let's save a workspace now, which basically saves everything that I've been working on. It saves a record of what files do I have open, what windows do I have open, what settings have I selected, and so forth. So let's save a workspace by going to the Home tab. And there's a Save Workspace command, which gives you choices. You can simply save the current workspace, or choose Save Workspace As to choose a different name or a different location for your workspace. So I will choose Save Workspace As, and I will call this Create Points Demo, and save. So now that I've saved a workspace, the text at the top shows me Create Points Demo, and that workspace is a record of everything I was working on. So at this point I can shut down Pro, I can shut down my computer, come back tomorrow and reopen the workspace, and it will bring back everything that we're seeing here. So let's simulate that. I'll go to Close menu, Close All. I won't actually shut down Pro, but let's say this is the next day and I want to resume the work where I left off. I can come back into Pro, go to the Home tab. On the Open menu, I can choose Open Workspace, which will bring me to a dialog and let me reopen the workspace file that I saved, the .wor file. Or, since this is a file that I saved very recently, there's a shortcut that I'll show you. On the Open menu, there's a list of recently used files, and I'll choose createpointsdemo.war off the recently used files menu, which is just a little quicker than going through the Open dialog. And that brings back my Bing roads layer and my points layer and my points data browser as well. So there you have some basic introductory tasks on how to use MapInfo Pro and how to bring your Excel data into MapInfo Pro and how to see that data on a map. Thank you for watching and listening. If you have any questions, please let us know at Pitney Bowes. We'd love to hear your questions and feedback. Thanks.